revealed radical teachings intended to meet humanity's changing social needs. Baha'u'llah first appeared in Persia in a society that reflected the decaying moral and spiritual standards of the time. Some of the central teachings Baha'u'llah brought include the oneness of mankind, unity of science and religion, freedom from prejudice, and the equality of men and women. The equality of men and women was a particularly radical teaching to introduce to a society that systematically oppressed women. Baha'u'llah stated that women and men have been and will always be equal in the sight of God. He revealed that the establishment of equal rights and privileges for women and men is a precondition for the ultimate goal of the unity of humankind. The Baha'i writings state, when all mankind shall receive the same opportunity of education and the equality of men and women be realized, the foundations of war will be utterly destroyed. Thus, the Baha'i Faith's vision of equality between the sexes rests on the central purpose of Baha'u'llah's mission, the unity of humankind. Baha'u'llah teaches us to regard humanity as a single individual and one's own member as a member of that corporeal form, and that if pain or injury afflicts any member of that body, it must inevitably result in suffering for all the rest. He states, "Know ye not why we created you all from the same dust? That no one should exalt himself over the other. Ponder in all times in your heart how ye were created. Since we have created you all from one same substance, it is incumbent upon you to be even as one soul, to walk with the same feet, eat with the same mouth, and dwell in the same land, that from your inmost being, by your deeds and actions, the signs of oneness and the essence of detachment may be made manifest." Baha'is believe that the full participation of women in all spheres of life is essential to social and economic growth, the abolition of warfare, and the ultimate goal of the unity of humankind. Humanity can be likened unto a bird, which, as Baha'u'llah states, is possessed of two wings, the male and the female. So long as these two wings are not equivalent in strength, the bird will not fly. Unless womankind reaches the same degree as man, until she enjoys the same arena of activity, extraordinary attainment for humanity will not be realized. Humanity cannot wing its way to heights of real attainments. When the two wings become equivalent in strength, enjoying the same prerogatives, the flight of man will be exceedingly lofty and extraordinary. In order to manifest the principle of gender equality into reality, men must not only identify as feminists, but become the chief advocates for women's rights. And the only systematic and effective way of achieving this goal is through the education of children. We place so much importance on education in this country, but most often, this education is limited to sciences, math, literature, and the arts, all material pursuits. Obviously, this type of education is important and necessary for society to progress. But while we've been advancing in material pursuits, we have been failing in moral progress. As our scientific achievements grow, so does our propensity for destruction. As we accumulate more wealth, it becomes concentrated in the hands of the few. Clearly, moral education has lagged far behind material education. It's essential to educate both boys and girls from a young age in issues of moral integrity and rectitude, not just book smarts. Our attempts to solve the lingering inequality between men and women can only achieve limited results unless we address the root cause of the societal ill, a lack of male education and the importance of women's rights. Boys must be taught that they have a responsibility to protect and defend the rights of women, that they must treat women as their equal counterparts, and that every human being must be equally respected and valued. We must teach boys that by doing their part to promote the equality of women and men, they'll be creating a more just and healthy society, one they would want to live in. Of course, girls must be educated and empowered in this area as well, but the time has come for men to spearhead this cause. Women have been struggling to gain full equality for centuries, and now need the full support of men to achieve this goal. Children are bright, eager, and ready to learn what they're taught. They learn how to read and write, add and subtract, memorize various historical and geographical facts. If the equality of men and women were taught to them as an undeniable fact, they would soak it in as they would any other piece of information. And when young boys have this solid moral understanding, they'll grow up and enter the world with their moral and intellectual muscles equally developed and ready to treat women as their equals in all respects. No amount of laws, hearings, or protests can fully eradicate the inequality between men and women. The full equality between the sexes can only be achieved when men recognize and champion the cause of women's rights. Boys must be educated from a young age to assume responsibility for and a personal stake in the advancement of women. When men and women unite to promote this ideal, they'll be creating a more equitable, stable, and truly advanced society.
Abdu'l-Bahá stated, O ye loving mothers, know ye that in God's sight, the best of all ways to worship him is to educate the children and train them in all the perfections of humankind. The critical challenge for today's society is to simultaneously honor the role of motherhood while providing equal opportunities for all sexes to receive an education. Baha'u'llah views the education of women as essential for establishing equality between the sexes. Baha'u'llah states education should be provided for both sexes, but if resources are limited, first priority should be given to women and girls. Although Baha'is believe that women and men share household responsibilities, educated mothers are essential for imparting spiritual and intellectual wisdom on the children to form the next generation. Abdu'l-Bahá stated, the education of women is more necessary and important than that of men, for women is the trainer of the child from its infancy. If she be defective and imperfect herself, the child will necessarily be deficient. Therefore, imperfection in all mankind, for it is the mother who rears, nurtures, and guides the growth of the child. This is not the function of the father. If the educator be incompetent, the educated will be correspondingly lacking. This is evident and incontrovertible. Could the student be brilliant and accomplished if the teacher is illiterate and ignorant? The mothers are the first educators of mankind. If they be imperfect, alas for the condition and future of the race. Baha'is believe that when women get properly educated, they will be the greatest factor for establishing universal peace. Abdu'l-Bahá further stated, so it will come to pass that when women participate fully and equally in the affairs of the world, when they enter confidently and capably the great arena of laws and politics, war will cease, for women will be the obstacle and hindrance to it. Thus, the Bahai Faith teaches us that women possess distinct qualities that need to be implemented at a higher capacity in order to establish universal peace. Abdu'l-Bahá stated, in past ages, humanity has been defective and inefficient because it has been incomplete. War and its ravages have blighted the world. The education of women will be a mighty step towards its abolition and ending, for she will use her whole influence against war. Woman rears the child and educates the youth to maturity. She will refuse to give her sons for sacrifice upon the fields of battle. In truth, she will be the greatest factor in establishing universal peace and international arbitration. Assuredly, women will abolish warfare among mankind. Thus, a fundamental shift in attitude must occur, both from others and from within women themselves. Girls and women must become aware of their inherent power and view themselves as complete equals upon their male counterparts. We must see ourselves as beings of worth that extends far past our physical appearance. We must not be afraid to speak up when we know the answer, or take risks even if we feel we are not up to the task. We must not see ourselves as products that must change and conform to the expectations of society, or diminish our intelligence for fear of seeming aggressive. When we as women recognize and live up to our true potentialities, we will be the greatest factor in establishing universal peace.
explaining some of the basic principles of Baha'i Faith and the role that both women and men can play in establishing equality between the sexes. And I'm just going to give a little bit of historical reference of women's rights around the world and different societies at the time when Baha'u'llah was bringing these teachings. So when Baha'u'llah came, women were barred from voting in every society, and the forerunners of Baha'u'llah, whose name was the Bab, his purpose was to completely restructure society and to tear down any traces of tradition or ritual to pave the way for Baha'u'llah to establish revolutionary teachings. And the Bab came in 1844, and his ministry was for 6 years. So the first 18 souls to believe in the Bab were named the Letters of the Living, and these were his disciples who were tasked with spreading his teachings across Iran. And one of these first disciples was a woman named Tahir, which means the pure one. And she was really interested in being educated from a young age, but of course women in Iran weren't allowed to be, and they would be killed if they even tried to be educated or obtain any kind of certification. So Tahir's father had the role of educating the religious officials of the time, and she would secretly listen in on his meetings and instructions with his students, so much so that she eventually gained enough knowledge to show her father everything she had learned, and he gave her a certification, which of course is prohibited in that time, so she tore it up. But just to show how much knowledge she obtained on her own. So like I mentioned, Tahir was searching after the Ghaya, which means the promised one. And her journey took her to eventually accepting the Bab after reading his writings and consulting with family members. So one of the ways that she decided to participate in spreading his teachings was by attending the conference of Badash. And this conference was held for the leading Babis, or followers of the Bab at the time. And the primary purpose of the conference was to find a way to free the Bab from his imprisonment at the time. And the secondary purpose, of course, was to completely establish the Bab's religion as a distinct form that wasn't part of Islam. And the way that this was achieved, in part, Tahir removed her veil as an act of symbolism to completely break with the past and establish a new culture and society. And although the people who were attending this conference were all Babis, they were so distraught and so shocked by such a powerful act that one of them even slit their throats. And that just goes to show that even though these people did accept the Bab's message, this was the first time they were seeing such a radical instance of the Bab's teachings put into action. Tahir was eventually killed, her beliefs, and she was waxed remarks saying, "You can kill me as soon as you like, but you will never stop the emancipation of women." And I thought it was interesting to note that this conference and these events in Iran were not an isolated experience around the world. So this was happening in July of 1848, the conference, and at the same time in America, there was the first national conference where women were asking for their rights, and at the time women didn't have the right to vote, they didn't have many of the same social and legal statuses as men did. So one of the leading instrumental women in this was Elizabeth Stanton, and she helped organize the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. And like I said, this was happening at the exact same time as the conference of Badash inadvertently. Looking back, it's really amazing to see that they were happening at the same time. But basically at the conference, they issued a declaration of sentiments, so they put into writing all of their main grievances, and the main thing they were demanding was the right to vote. And this was seen as a crazy, radical proposition at the time by men who were attending. But yeah, it was put into writing, and they wanted to get the right to vote. And of course, Baha'is attribute these two parallel events to the coming of the Bab and the power of his revelation to completely spiritually transform society and bring about people who wanted to put these teachings into action.
Okay, so we just heard about the spiritual import of the equality of men and women and also its historical significance. So I guess a natural thought from this would be, we already have the cause of feminism in America and people are already becoming awakened to this idea. So what is the role of religion or spirituality in this? So I'm going to talk now about how social movements alone cannot bring about long-lasting social change, and how we need spiritual teachings to actually fundamentally underlie our understanding. So in America, the cause of feminism has actually become aligned or identified with the political left, and a lot of people have seen that this issue has become politicized instead of just a fundamental fact or principle that we all agree on. So another related teaching of the Bahai Faith is the non-involvement in politics. So I'm sort of going to talk a little bit about that and then talk about how it relates to my earlier point. So Abdu'l-Bahá, the son of Baha'u'llah, stated, "Religion is concerned with things of the spirit, politics with things of the world. Religion has to work with the world of thought, whilst the field of politics lies with the world of external conditions." So we see here that Abdu'l-Bahá is clearly differentiating the two realms of operation between religion and politics, kind of similar to the Baha'i belief in the separation of church and state. He goes on to say, "With political questions, the clergy, however, have nothing to do. Religious matters should not be confused with politics in the present state of the world, for their interests are not identical. Religion concerns matters of the heart, of the spirit, and of morals. Politics are occupied with the material things of life. Religious teachers should not invade the realm of politics. They should concern themselves with the spiritual education of the people. They should ever give good counsel to men, trying to serve God and humankind. They should endeavor to awaken spiritual aspiration and strive to enlarge the understanding and knowledge of humanity, to improve morals, and to increase the love for justice." So we see that religion kind of has a higher calling and a nobler purpose, whereas politics many times, or oftentimes, is concerned with advancing your own party's interests or your own interests at the time that may change in a mere moment. But some people have actually said, if Baha'is have such good ideas and they have such noble aspirations, why don't they become more involved in politics and try to infuse their teachings into the current state of the political system? Abdu'l-Bahá goes on to explain the reason for this. He says, "Love is unlimited, boundless, infinite. Material things are limited, circumscribed, finite. You cannot adequately express infinite love by limited means. The perfect love needs an unselfish instrument, absolutely freed from fetters of every kind. The love of family is limited. The tie of blood relationship is not the strongest bond. Frequently, members of the same family disagree and even hate each other. Patriotic love is finite. The love of one's country causing hatred of all others is not perfect love. Compatriots are also not free from quarrels among themselves. The love of race is limited. There is some union here, but that is insufficient. Love must be free from boundaries. To love our own race may mean hatred of all others, and even people of the same race often dislike each other. Political love also is much bound up with hatred of one party for another. This love is very limited and uncertain. The love of community of interest and service is likewise fluctuating. Frequently competitions arise, which lead to jealousy, and at length, hatred replaces love. A few years ago, Turkey and Italy had a friendly political understanding. Now they are at war. All these ties of love are imperfect. It is clear that limited material ties are insufficient to adequately express the universal love. The great unselfish love for humanity is bounded by none of these imperfect, semi-selfish bonds. This is the one perfect love, possible to all mankind, and can only be achieved by the power of the divine spirit. No worldly power can accomplish the universal love. Let all be united in this divine power of love. Let all strive to grow in the light of the sun of truth, and reflecting this luminous love on all men, may their hearts become so united that they may dwell evermore in the radiance of the limitless love. So we can see that when any issue, as it happens to in this day and age, becomes associated with the political side, it becomes the cause of contention and disunity instead of consultation on its actual merits. So it's become easy for people to oppose the cause of feminism because of its political associations and where the idea is coming from, rather than the content of the idea. This is why we need spiritual education to fuel our understanding of this principle. By understanding that this principle stems from a spiritual truth about our innate nature, rather than some passing political fad, we can all come to a common understanding about how to consult and improve the manifestation of this principle in society. The principle of equality can then become a cause of unity rather than disunity. So also our motivation for achieving this principle should be spiritual in nature. You know, especially in America today, we see a lot of people speaking out on behalf of women and supporting them. Politicians, other government leaders, even corporations and companies have ads that target women's empowerment. But we have to really think about the motivation behind this endorsement and why is it happening now all of a sudden. This is unfortunately a lot of times due to political advantages one can gain, or even companies can get financial support because they see people care more about the issues, they're changing their marketing. But as Abdu'l-Bahá says, this kind of love is very limited and uncertain. It could pass, it could change. Tomorrow when political interests change and the issues of women are no longer talked about that much, politicians can not talk about it. Or when companies realize they have other sources of revenue, they can divert ads. So we need spiritual motivation and understanding of this principle to fuel social change. So we should realize that our motivation for championing this principle and trying to bring it about in reality should be coming from the realization that the entire progress of humanity will continue to be stunted unless we actually talk about and try to implement this. We should realize that, as Baha'u'llah taught us, war and contention will simply not disappear unless women become fully integrated into the life of society. Even in the US, when in the recent midterm elections we had women elected at an unprecedented rate, still only 20% of our Congress is female, and we've never had a female president. You can just imagine how many issues would be differently decided if our representation was proportionate. We wouldn't have to constantly appeal to our government leaders' sense of empathy for women or get them to think, what if this was your mother? What if this was your sister? We wouldn't have to do that because half of our representation would come from women themselves who obviously innately understand women's issues because they're, in fact, women. And we should also realize that, as Bayan mentioned, the spiritual progress of boys and men will also continue to be hampered unless they become the advocates for this cause. So by understanding that the cause of feminism is fundamentally spiritual in nature, we will pave the way for actual unity and consultation on how women can become integrated into the life of society. And again, as Baha'u'llah said, until womankind reaches the same degree as man, until she enjoys the same arena of activity, extraordinary attainment for humanity will not be realized. Humanity cannot wing its way to heights of real attainment.